Here is the number that tells you everything about where Buy Now Pay Later has gone in Canada. 21.9% of Canadians are now using BNPL for groceries. Not for a new iPhone, not for a couch, not for a vacation they could not quite afford. Groceries. The most essential, routine, non-negotiable purchase in a household budget, and more than 1 in 5 Canadians are now splitting it into installments. That is not a payment tool being used strategically. That is a financial system under stress, using whatever is available to get through the month. Buy Now Pay Later launched in Canada as a convenient way to spread the cost of discretionary purchases. A modern, interest-free version of layaway for tech gadgets and fashion. Data from Payments Canada shows that 26% of Canadians have used BNPL services in 2025. Klarna alone has 2.2 million active Canadian users, a 244% increase from 2023. The Canadian BNPL market is now worth approximately $7.5 billion annually and growing at 12% per year. The marketing says, flexible payments, zero interest, no credit check, shop now, pay later. What the marketing does not say, 21% of Canadians who use BNPL have already missed or been late on a payment. The Credit Counseling Society served more 18 to 34-year-olds in 2025 than at any other point in its history. And BNPL remains largely unregulated in Canada, meaning the protections that apply to credit cards and personal loans do not yet apply to this product. This is the Buy Now, Pay Later epidemic, and this video covers exactly how the trap works, who it is hurting, and what to do instead. Before the trap, the mechanics, because understanding exactly how BNPL products work, including the parts that are not in the advertisement, is what separates an informed decision from an accidental one. The basic model. Buy Now Pay Later allows a consumer to purchase something immediately and pay for it in installments over time, typically 4 payments over 6 weeks, the Pay in 4 model, or monthly installments over 3 to 36 months, depending on the provider and purchase size. The short-term Pay in 4 products typically charge 0 interest if payments are made on time. Longer-term installment plans may charge interest ranging from 0% to as high as 30%, depending on the provider, the purchase, and the buyer's credit profile. What triggers fees and interest? Late payment fees. Most BNPL providers charge a fee for missed or late payments, typically $7 to $15 per missed payment, capped at a percentage of the purchase price. These feel small in isolation. Across multiple simultaneous plans, they add up rapidly. Returned purchase complications. If you return a purchase made through BNPL, the refund process is more complicated than a standard return. The BNPL provider must coordinate with the retailer, and you may continue to owe installments during the refund processing period. The longer-term installment trap. Some BNPL products, particularly those for larger purchases like furniture, electronics, or dental work, carry deferred interest clauses. If the full balance is not paid by the end of the promotional zero-interest period, the interest that would have accrued during the entire period is applied retroactively. This is the same mechanism as store credit cards with no payments, no interest promotions, and it catches people the same way. What BNPL providers do not always disclose prominently: the total cost of borrowing if payments are missed. Whether the plan will appear on your credit report. Many short-term BNPL plans currently do not report to credit bureaus in Canada, but this is changing, and missed payments can still go to collections. The aggregate debt you are carrying across multiple simultaneous BNPL plans. That using BNPL may trigger overdraft fees in your bank account, if the automatic payment hits when your balance is low. The layaway comparison that clarifies the reversal. Layaway, the predecessor to BNPL, required you to pay for something before you received it. You made payments while the store held the item. BNPL reverses this entirely. You receive the item immediately and pay later. The psychological consequence of this reversal is enormous, covered in Segment 2. Here is the vault, the specific design feature of Buy Now Pay, later that makes it more psychologically dangerous than a credit card, and the reason your brain genuinely cannot track the aggregate debt it creates accurately. The pain of payment. Behavioral economists have documented extensively that paying for something hurts. Literally, in brain imaging studies, the act of paying money activates the same neural regions as physical pain. This pain of payment is one of the primary brakes on overconsumption. When you hand over cash, the pain is immediate and full. When you pay by credit card, the pain is delayed and slightly reduced. When you use BNPL, especially the Pay in 4 model, the pain is divided into 4 small pieces, each arriving weeks apart. A $400 purchase does not feel like a $400 purchase when it is presented as 4 payments of $100. Behavioral research shows that consumers consistently underestimate the total cost of installment purchases and spend significantly more when offered payment plans than when paying in full. This is not an accident. It is the product's core design principle. The stacking problem, a single BNPL plan for a planned purchase is manageable. The average Canadian using BNPL does not have one plan. They have multiple, simultaneously. A Klarna plan for clothing, an Afterpay plan for cosmetics, an Affirm plan for a phone, a PayBright plan for furniture. Each individual plan looks small and manageable. The aggregate, 5 separate plans with overlapping payment dates and different providers, is a debt burden that most people cannot accurately track in their head. There is no single statement, no single balance. The debt is fragmented across multiple apps, multiple providers, multiple schedules. This is precisely what a credit card does not do. A credit card consolidates all spending into a single balance on a single statement. You can see the total at any moment. The BNPL model deliberately fragments this, not maliciously, but structurally, making the aggregate debt invisible in a way that a credit card balance is not. The BNPL users who miss payments. In Spergel's survey, 21% of respondents had already missed or been late on a BNPL payment. That number tends to rise as plans stack. The word stack here is the key. When you have 5 simultaneous plans and 1 payment date slips, the fee triggers, the overdraft triggers, and the financial stress compounds rapidly. The peer-reviewed evidence on financial harm. A study published in March 2025 found that U.S. consumers who used BNPL saw sharp increases in bank overdraft charges and credit card interest and fees compared to non-users. The debt does not replace other debt. It adds to it. The BNPL industry markets itself as a democratizing force, making purchases accessible to people who might otherwise go without. The actual data on who is being hurt tells a more complicated story. The young Canadian debt crisis. The Credit Counseling Society served more 18 to 34-year-olds in 2025 than at any other point in its history. More than a quarter of the clients seen in one Calgary Credit Counseling Society office in 2025 were under 35. These are people coming in the words of the counselor, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, very frustrated because they don't know why their life is on hold. BNPL is not the sole cause of this. Young Canadians are simultaneously facing high rent, student loan debt, slow wage growth, and a labor market with elevated youth unemployment at 12.7% as of June 2026. But BNPL is described by debt counselors as a compounding factor, adding layers of small obligations to budgets that are already stretched to breaking. The income spread, it is not just lower earners. Data show that middle-income earners were almost as likely to use BNPL as those making less. This is important because it challenges the assumption that BNPL problems are limited to financially vulnerable populations. Middle-income Canadians who believe they are being financially strategic, spreading a large purchase across interest-free installments, are using the same product in the same way and carrying the same fragmented debt burden. The essential needs shift. Research shows 21.9% of Canadians now use BNPL for groceries and essentials. This is the most alarming data point in the entire BNPL conversation, because it signals that the product has moved from a discretionary purchase tool to a basic cost-of-living coping mechanism. When people are splitting grocery bills into installments, the underlying problem is not that they need a better payment tool. It is that their income does not cover their essential expenses. BNPL does not solve this problem. It defers a portion of it by 1 or 2 pay periods, while adding payment obligation complexity on top. The missed payment cascade. 1.4 million Canadians missed credit card payments in Q2 2025, 118,000 more than the same period the year before. The Credit Counseling Society reported an 11% increase in Canadians seeking financial help in November 2025 compared with the same period a year earlier. These figures reflect the broader consumer financial stress, and BNPL, while not the only driver, is operating as an accelerant in an already stressed environment. The hidden cost structure, BNPL, is marketed as free. For many users, in many situations, it is free if payments are made perfectly, on time, for a single plan. The hidden cost structure only reveals itself at the edges. Late fees that compound across plans. A $15 late fee on each of 5 simultaneous BNPL plans is $75 from one bad week. Across a year, if a user with 5 plans misses 1 payment per plan, they have paid $75 in fees on purchases they believed were interest-free. This does not include the overdraft fees triggered when the auto payments hit on low-balance days. The high-interest, longer-term plans, the pay-in-4 zero-interest products, get the headlines. The longer-term installment plans, for purchases of $500 to $5,000 plus, often carry interest rates of 10% to 30%, depending on the user's credit profile. These are not zero-interest products. They are personal loans with the friction removed from the application process and the interest rate not prominently advertised at checkout. The regulation gap in Canada. Unlike credit cards, which are regulated under the Bank Act and provincial consumer protection legislation, BNPL products in Canada currently fall in a regulatory gray zone. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada released a 2021 pilot study on the trend that noted risks like debt accumulation and lack of transparency, but stopped short of recommending any changes. This means that BNPL providers are not required to disclose the effective annual interest rate in the same prominent way credit card issuers are. The right to dispute a charge and have the BNPL obligation suspended during investigation, a standard credit card consumer right, does not universally apply. Debt collection practices for delinquent BNPL accounts may differ from those governing credit card debt. What is changing? Regulators in the UK, Australia, and the US have moved toward requiring BNPL products to be regulated similarly to other consumer credit products. Canada is expected to follow. But as of 2026, the regulatory framework has not yet caught up with the scale of adoption. The credit bureau gap closing. Historically, many short-term BNPL plans in Canada did not report to credit bureaus like Equifax or TransUnion. This is changing rapidly. Several major providers are beginning to report payment history, meaning missed BNPL payments will increasingly affect Canadian credit scores. Users who assumed BNPL was invisible to credit bureaus may be surprised. BNPL is not inherently evil. It is a financial tool, and like most financial tools, its danger or utility depends entirely on how it is used. Here is the specific framework for using it well or avoiding it entirely. When BNPL is a genuinely neutral tool. One plan, one purchase. The purchase is something you would have bought anyway at the full price in a single payment. You can afford the full price right now, but prefer to spread the cash flow. You have 0 other simultaneous BNPL plans. The plan is 0 interest and short-term. You have set a calendar reminder for every payment date. You have confirmed the plan does not require you to miss contributing to savings or paying other obligations. This is a small category. If all of these conditions are met, BNPL is essentially a zero-cost cash flow management tool, the equivalent of putting a purchase on a credit card and paying it off over the next 4 weeks, but interest-free. When to avoid it entirely? You currently have any other BNPL plan running simultaneously. The purchase is for something essential: groceries, utilities, medication, that indicates income does not cover expenses. You are not certain you can make all payments from existing income without reducing savings or increasing other debt. The interest rate is above 0 for longer-term plans. You cannot immediately state without checking an app the total aggregate BNPL obligation you are currently carrying. You are using it because the purchase feels more affordable in installments, not because you are strategically managing cash flow on a purchase you could afford up front. The honest alternative for essential expense shortfalls. If you are using BNPL for groceries because income does not cover expenses, BNPL is not the solution. The solution requires addressing the income-expense gap directly. That means either increasing income, additional hours, a second income source, a side project, or reducing expenses, the spending audit covered in earlier videos, canceled subscriptions, category limits, the emergency fund as the structural protection. BNPL defers the problem by 2 to 6 weeks and adds payment complexity. It does not solve the underlying gap. The one rule that prevents most BNPL problems. One plan at a time. Maximum. If you want to start a new BNPL plan, pay off the current one first. This single rule prevents the stacking problem that creates most of the financial harm, and makes the aggregate debt visible because there is only ever one plan to track. Let's come back to where we started. 21.9% of Canadians are now using BNPL for groceries. You now understand exactly what that means, not as a judgment on the people doing it, but as a data point about the financial environment they are navigating. High cost of living, slow wage growth, an income-expense gap that is real and documented, and a payment tool that has been designed to feel manageable in small pieces, while the aggregate debt across multiple simultaneous plans becomes genuinely difficult to track. The buy now, pay later epidemic is not a story about irresponsible people making bad decisions. It is a story about a financial tool with a specific psychological design, one that fragments debt, reduces the pain of payment, and encourages stacking, operating in a stressed consumer environment with almost no regulatory guardrails. BNPL did not create Canada's affordability crisis, but it has become one of the ways people are trying to cope with it. The framework is clear. One plan at a time, never for essentials. Only for purchases you could afford up front. The emergency fund is the structural alternative. And if the income-expense gap is the underlying problem. BNPL defers it, never solves it. Use it deliberately or not at all.